everyone. Happy Bloomsday, a celebration of this book, Ulysses, my biggest book, and all things Ulysses. I almost shot this from a different angle. I have a big Irish flag over there. I have a smaller one over there too. So, and two behind me. Maybe I'll show a shot of that. It's my classics bookshelf. All my Faulkners there, my Thomas Pynchon, my religious and magic books, my tarot books. But what do we talk about when we talk about Ulysses? So many enigmas, I'll call them. The Man in the Mac is one of Bloom's personal enigmas. Mysteries, something that bothers him throughout the book. It's mentioned several times in the novel, and we'll get to that. There's also a couple of parallels from Dubliners, and what do I always say? I'm going to read Ulysses, start with Dubliners, because a lot of the characters reappear in Ulysses. So we'll get to that, and Pat at Book Chat with Pat and I are going to do a Dublin's read-along in December. We're just starting to organize it and conceptualize it. Hopefully we'll get some other booktubers involved. Okay, enigmas. I could have went with what happens to Stephen? Where does Stephen sleep? Maybe one. You know what happens to Molly and Leopold Bloom? Does she go off with Blazes? These are conjectural, like enigmas. Some you can prove, and some people try to prove the Man in the Mac was a real person, because there's tons of real people in here. You know, like Buck Mulligan was that Oliver. You know, I'm not here to talk about, or Haynes was the English guy. You can prove that. Talked about the Man in the Mac, except for one time I can find in Switzerland, and to the point, if it was a real person, nobody in Switzerland would know that. So it kind of makes me believe it's like in the James Joyce universe. Some say that in A Painful Case. Well, let me start with the first appearance of the Man in the Mac. It's in Hades, the 6th episode, the funeral scene with of Patty Digman, the man who's getting buried. Should I talk about this edition? It's any chance I get it out. It's a 1922 edition. Kathleen Flynn. The text with essays and notes. So it's like a photocopy. I'll show you some of the first edition. Sylvia Beach in that bookmark. So I'm going to talk about two characters. Haynes, who's a journalist, and he is in Ivy Day in the committee room. Joyce's favorite story out of Dubliners has Charles Stewart Parnell in it. The savior could have been could have been, he was a politician and home rule and all that. He had a affair with Kitty O'Shea, and it was a big scandal and ruined his career and possibilities, and that appears in Finnegan's Wake a lot. But in Hades, we have Haynes jotting down something in his notebook. Ah, the names, but he knows them all. No, coming to me. I am just taking the names, Haynes says below his breath. What is your Christian name? I'm not sure. L, Mr. Bloom said. Leopold. And you might put down McCoy's name too, he asked me to. Charlie, Haynes said, writing. I know. He was on the Freeman once. Bloom is telling his name, L, Bloom, Leopold, and getting McCoy down too, his friend who asked him earlier. And Freeman's Journal is another newspaper. Haynes works for the, the Telegraph. A paragraph down. And tell us, Haynes says, do you know that fellow was over there in the, he looked around, Macintosh. Yes, I saw him, Mr. Bloom said. Where is he now? Emmentage, Haynes said, scribbling. I don't know who he is. Is that his name? Here, I'll show you what Emmentage looks like. He moved away, looking at him. No, Mr. Bloom began, turning and stopping. I say, Haynes. Didn't hear. What? Where has he disappeared to? Not a sign. Well, has anybody here seen? K-E-double-L become invisible. Good Lord, what became of him? This K-E-double-L is also from a sign. Clapboards, they were wearing K-E-L-L. So that's the first appearance of the Man in the Mac, and gets confused as M in Tosh. And it continues let me go with A Painful Case first in James Duffy, because soon after, in this chapter, Bloom thinks about a character in A Painful Case, and A Painful Case is about Mrs. Seneca and James Duffy. She's a married woman whose husband, their marriage isn't good, and James Duffy is a old bachelor type who they have an emotional affair, and he cuts it off because it was getting what? Well, let's go to the text. Painful Case. He sat there living over his life with her and evoking alternatively the two images in which he now conceived her. He realized that she was dead, that she had ceased to exist, that she had become a memory. Okay, he could not have carried on a comedy of deception with her. He could not have lived with her openly. He had done what seemed best. How was he to blame? Okay. And also, let me say here, he could not live with her openly. So he cuts it off. He could not live with the deception. And a few pages earlier, here's a famous aphorism from Joyce. Duffy remembers one of his sentences written 2 months after his last interview with Mrs. Seneca read, Love between man and man is impossible because there must not be sexual intercourse, and friendship between man and woman is impossible because there must be sexual intercourse. I'm not saying that that sounds gay, homosexual to me, but you could, or I could, from those two things, argue it. So Bloom is thinking about her grave, which he went to her burial. She dies. The whole crux of A Painful Case is Duffy, after he breaks it off, reads in the paper her obituary, and she fell in front of a train. Suicide? He kind of thinks of that, and he's feeling guilty about it. He might have tried harder, but why didn't he? He was gay. So they stretch that and say, getting back to the Man in the Mac, right? That's the ghost of James Duffy going to visit her grave. Now, it's not too far-fetched. Again, we don't know. Joyce never told Frank Budgeon or Stuart Gilbert or anyone definitively about this Man in the Mac or McIntosh and Emmentosh. Nabokov, the writer of Lolita, was a Joycean and loved Ulysses, and used an example from Scylla and Charybdis from Stephen's own mouth, and that is, he has hidden his own name, a fair name, William, in the plays, a super here, a clown there, as a painter of old Italy set his face in a dark corner of his canvas. So if it's good enough for Shakespeare, it's good enough for Joyce. It goes to say then, is Joyce pulling like a Alfred Hitchcock? Like Hitchcock would have a cameo in his films or that type of thing? Is it Joyce looking out at us? Okay, the Duffy thing, and there's another. You can break this down. Is it a real person? I say no. So is it a character from Dubliners or the Joycean world, universe? And others say it could be Rudolph Varig, Bloom's father, who committed suicide. And that theory is because of the Man in the Mac. Why is he wearing a raincoat? You know what a Macintosh is, right? Like Peter Falk in Columbo. Bloomsday, 1904, was a fairly sunny day. Now, it's cloudy, and there's a cloud that floats through Ulysses. Another enigma is this beggar who Molly throws a coin to. I could have talked about him, but Man in the Mac is more interesting to me. You know, there's that rabbit hole you can go down because they mention Rudolph Vareg's sciatica, and could tell when it's raining through that. It's in Circe. I have felt this instant a twinge of sciatica in my left gluteal muscle. It runs in our family. Poor dear Papa, a widower, was a regular barometer from it. There's two other appearances of a man in a brown Macintosh, and they happen during the scene with a viceroy and a cavalcade. There's a man in a brown Macintosh eating dry bread, and he walks in front of all the cars in the procession. There's another appearance in Wandering Rocks with medical students who are drinking, and it's in Wandering Rocks. There was the Vice Regal cavalcade clatters through the streets of Dublin. In Lower Mount Street, a pedestrian in a brown Macintosh eating dry bread passed swiftly and unscathed across the Viceroy's path. So we learned some more. The unnamed narrator in Cyclops says, "The man in the brown Macintosh loves a lady who is dead." I was talking about medical students that gathered in Burke's Pub in Oxen of the Sun, and it's written in drunk talk. "Golly, what in trunkets you guy in the Macintosh? Dusty roads? Peep at his wearables. By mighty, what's he got? Jubilee mutton? Bovile by James. Wants it real bad. Dyke and bare socks? Seedy cuss in the Richmond? Raw there. Thought he had a deposit of lead in his penis. Tipperary insanity. Bartle the bread, he calls him. That, sir, was once a prosperous cit. Man all tattered and torn that married a maiden all forlorn. Slung her hook, she did. Here see love lost, walking Macintosh of Lonely Canyon. Tuck and turn in, schedule time. Nix for the bronies. Pardon? Seen him today at the Roomfunnel. There's a lot to unpack in that, but we've got a guy, he looks homeless. He's talking about his socks. He's drinking this Bovile, which is like a health drink, a nasty drink from what I can gather, an old drink. He was a seedy cuss in the Richmond. Richmond is a mental insane asylum. He thought he had a deposit of lead in his penis. Temporary insanity. Then they call him Bartle the Bread, so there's the other bread from the brown guy in the Macintosh passing through cars at the cavalcade. Seen him today at the Roomfunnel. That's a pun on funeral. Dusty roads could be a nickname for a tramp, a homeless person. But I'll show you in Circe the play, the hallucinatory episode. The man in the Mac pops out of a trap door and accuses Bloom of unnatural bisexuality. He comes out of a trap door and he's titled "The Man in the Macintosh." And he's talking to others about Bloom. Don't you believe a word he says. That man is Leopold Emmentosh, the notorious fire raiser. His real name is Higgins. Then Bloom, shoot him, dog of a Christian. So much for Emmentosh. You can go through the questions and not find any answers. Because is it really about answers? Or is it the journey? Why do we pick apart novels and seek secondary sources and talk about it with our friends? I want to mention some people here. My friend I've lost touch with, well, I've lost touch with both these people, Una at the Codex Cantina. Now, he shared with me an inside link to his Ulysses series, all 18 episodes coming out. It hasn't been released yet, but they've been working on that over a year. So get back in touch with me, Una. Then Adam Savage, I think Adam Abroad, haven't heard from him. But if you happen to see this, Adam, I'd like to hear your thoughts. The Ulysses 6, Pat, Book Chat with Pat, Debs at Rainer Reads stuff, I think. Roy Reads Anything. Will Chambers, myself, and Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads. What do you guys think? What are your enigmas? What are you doing on Bloomsday? What are you doing on Bloomsday? Anything? Yeah, it's not real popular in America. Well, big cities, they might do some. But in Dublin, the Lord Mayor comes out, people dress up as characters, and there's like big readings from Ulysses, and like Dublin is just a joyous amusement park for me. I long to return. So, hey, thanks for your time and your consideration. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.